Today we're driving the all-new Skoda Superb here in the new generation and with Thomas Nautical Fuel in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the Superb sedan, hatch, limousine, fastback, sportback, liftback, because this is here from the outside the sedan or saloon form. In Germany, indeed, we say limousine. In Czech Republic, for example, as well, but you can also say liftback or fastback because this one here has some kind of a combi or estate opening. So really practical. At the same time, you have the more sensual form on the exterior. There is also the combi available, the estate form for the Superb. The Volkswagen Passat that is built in the very same plant is now only available as the estate form anymore. With the Superb, you can still go for both. And I think it's pretty cool because the exterior looks really nice and like classic. At the same time, it's more aerodynamic. CD value is at 0.23. So that's better than with the combi or the estate. Means this one might also be more fuel efficient. Yeah, and in styling in the front, you can see here the Skoda grille has these vertical forms, the selection trim, mid-trim level. Here is all where all the sensors are being hidden. Then pebble silver is our color here for today. This will be bought quite often. And then the headlamps, they lead over like in one unit, nice optional matrix LED, and they have this crystalline look on the inside. The length is 4 meters 91 or 193 inches, so substantial in length here. Also grown a little bit in wheelbase. Wheels from 16 to 19 inch. These here are 18-inch wheels, so they already give you a nice look. But I think 17 might also work. It's always a trade-off between comfort and the looks. About comfort, there's the optional DCC Plus, they call it now, 2-valve technology. Volkswagen calls it DCC Pro, they call it DCC Plus. And this to bring you more sportiness and comfort at the same time. With this adaptive suspension, it switches according to the driving mode. And yeah, me personally, I do prefer this outside sedan building style here for the Superb. It just looks very, elegant, I feel. Then the new light signature here at the rear as well, a little bit segmented, and a large Skoda lettering right here. What do you think? Would you rather go for the combi or here for this one? And on the lower part, no fake exhaust at all. So I really like this very clean design they have here for the Superb. Ooh, and look at these turning indicators. They look really beautiful, right? Very clean actually as well. So yeah, design-wise, I think this is without question. Do you like it? Tell me in the comments. And if you have the matrix LED, look at that. You also have this cascading turning indicator here in the rear. That looks also pretty impressive. So light design-wise, I think is really beautiful. By the way, this here, the Superb Hatch, is one of the very, very rare vehicles where you do not have like a SUV or combi, but a rather sedan from the outside, and you can optionally still get a rear wiper. This one is not equipped with it, but for a 150 euros, you can extra get here a rear wiper. Yeah, design-wise, this of course looks always cleaner, but some really prefer to have a rear wiper, and they at least offer it. More news are to come in the interior. There we go. Inside of the doors here we have a nice structure. This is also somewhat soft. Then here selection loft trim. So the selection trim and loft interior equipment. Gray fabric, I like that. Here then is softer for your elbow. Also what is nice here, felt covering for the inside of the doors. And this is not only in the front, I can show you right now. This is actually also for the rear doors. We have a felt covering on the inside, and even a BMW 5 Series cannot do that. And you know that at the end of the day, we'll end up with half a price of a BMW 5 Series. The question is, what do we get for that? Also nice door closing sound in the rear and also in the front. So quality-wise, a very good first impression. Steering wheel is, so to speak, spokeless in the lower part. Interesting form. No animal skin alternatives for the steering wheel yet. However, for the seats, there are some good alternatives. You get a base black fabric seat. This is in here like mid-trim. One above that is a gray fabric. That looks really cozy. And there would also be a gray microfiber interior available here also in that selection trim. It's called then the lounge equipment then for the selection trim here. This one we had last time with the combi. That was also beautiful. very good comfort here indeed. 189, 6'2", still have enough headroom left. There is also a panoramic roof available, just this one is not equipped with it. But what I also like is that here we have a bright headliner, so everything looks bright on the interior, and I do prefer that over the black headliner. Let's see here, this cannot be made longer. Sometimes this one here can be made longer, you know, but here it's actually not possible. Steering wheel, in and out, up and down, manual way, but a very smooth process, and we have a lot of manual control still. Separate stalk for the cruise control, for example. Then here I can control the wipers, and this is then the turning indicator. Also, for example, here, button for the heated steering wheel. On the right side, I have one button to deactivate some assistance systems and so on. This scroll wheel here, one is for the volume. So that looks good as for the user interface, but there's more. Look at that here, these vertical elements look like a front grille. And then this is here really lovely in this loft trim selection. With grey fabric here around, so beautiful work. This is really a premium vehicle from the inside, and look at this structure here as well. It's also nice. Then the glove box is also dampened when it falls down, and manual user interface in the lower part. This is also different to the Volkswagen Passat, where you don't have that. Here, for example, yeah, maybe this could be a little bit better attached, but I'm really happy that we have this manual interface. We click it once, then I can change the seat heating, click it another time, go back to the temperature again. And you can also here, when you select this here separately, here when you're in the climate unit once again, you hold and then you sync it left and right. In the middle part, this is to select the driving modes while driving, for example, going into the sport mode, for example, click it one more time. Zoom in the map, one more time the vent strength, for example, and one more time for the volume. But you can also select it in the infotainment system if you just want one or two things on this there. Then middle console, slide this one here open. Cup holders are adaptive. In the front there is an inductive charging pad. It's also cooled, but I have to say the smartphone still gets hot, so probably then the cable connection is better. However, you can see here the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto is wireless or wired. You can actually select that. And what a huge step forward now for the software. Finally, it's well usable again. It could be a little bit quicker, yes, but there's a new back end for that one, so you can also use that now. For example, the assistance system or the speed warning, you can also deactivate quickly here in there, but it's also possible in the instruments. I'm going to show that to you very soon. And the DCC Pro can be also individual configured here in the infotainment system. Means I can set it really to the most comfort or then to the sportiest setting. So you can select this everything more individual than you could even select with the driving modes. Then there's also nice fabric covering here for your arm, for your elbow, and then you have more storage underneath. This is like this screen wiper, microfiber here for, you know, like cleaning the screen like this. You can use that, yeah, don't have to. Underneath, more splitters here inside, so you're kind of flexible with that one, although I don't find this one the most practical thing. Oh, look at that here. Yeah, Leah discovered that. I was looking at it and like, no, it's like, what is this for? But obviously, like cards, like a parking card or something, like a sensor, they do fit in here, and then you can just hide them there. Other than that, of course, you can once again put them up here. This is also possible. So a very lovely cockpit, especially here with the grey fabric style that is then transported to the seats and also to the dashboard. I think that's a beautiful idea. Then for the digital instruments, you can select the different views. I more like this classic view. And you also get a head-up display. Gear selection is here, drive forward, reverse, and P on the side. However, what's quite strange here when you use the AC unit, you have these nice overlays here that you see what you're doing. This is the car internal GPS. And now I thought it was fixed because I saw that with the Octavia or Octavia here. When I'm in the Google Maps GPS, then the screen turns black. Oh, you can see Leah in the reflection. Hello. So this was a problem with the Superb infotainment. But as I said, in the Octavia, it was different. And the same is also when we go, for example, to Apple Maps, like here, and then we use the AC, screen turns black. Yeah, I mean, in the Octavia, as I said, it is fixed, So I'm not sure why they haven't done it here for the Superb. Luxury in a vehicle that is actually not in the price luxury segment. That's what the Superb is trying to do. Does it work? Here, look at that, rear doors. You also have a structure here, and it's also somewhat soft touch, I like that. Then you have here the manual shade, also good to have it. Beautiful grey fabric on the inside. This is also soft touch here, so when you close the door and so on, maybe you hit it from the inside at some point, good. And also the felt coverings I mentioned earlier, and you have a lot of legroom here. Look at that. This is when I'm driving as a tall driver. There's massive amounts of legroom. Here in the middle part, you have a rear climate unit, a separate one, even seat heating for the rear, for example. There's no charger underneath though, but they are placed on the top part to be even more practical and accessible. And it's a good seating comfort here, definitely for the rear. And here the headroom, yeah, in the sedan, of course, it's a little bit less than with the Combi, but with 189 or 602, it's still plenty of headroom there, so good in comfort. And then this is here like a, oh yeah, this is here, you can actually pull that out or attach it at the head restraints. And this is here a blanket holder, so I don't know, maybe for snuggling or something, why not? But of course you can also just put it in the trunk, and then you can fold down this here. They are not adaptive, these cup holders though. And then there's the ski hatch right there to access also the rear. Yeah, so indeed, very well usable in the rear. What about the fifth seat? Yeah, it's a little bit stiffer than from the seating. It does work space-wise, no problem. And who would have guessed that here in the head restraint there is Leah's favorite feature? Because, I mean, usually, yeah, Sleepy Leah. When she's in the rear, she can use these sleeping horns, and then, yeah, and the blanket, yeah, and the blanket. So this is a good combination then. Yeah, so it's actually pretty cool that your head is being held tight, that you don't get any neck pain. It's a very good idea, especially for families, maybe the kids in the back and so on. An isofix on the outsides each, and you push it in, then you can install it, and it doesn't fly around. So this is on the outside seats each. And in the front there, passenger seat, there's a top tether. And is there isofix on the front seat? Is there?
Yes.
Yes, also isofix here on the front seat. As for the trunk, 645 liters. That's not much less than with the Combi, because in comparison to the Estate, you just lose the area right here a little bit. So when you want to put very high things in, which are long and high, both. Here in the top part, this is then for loose jackets, for example, and it's a little bit different than in the Octavia, because in the Octavia you kind of like hang it out, but here you just push it back and can roll it or slide it back like this, and also make it a little bit larger. So I think that's an interesting solution. And yeah, I found it's really good for jackets, or it can also be used especially when the jackets are wet, for example, or maybe for a wet umbrella or something. Wait a minute. There we go. Because this thing shouldn't be missing. It's the famous Skoda umbrella. The little bit feeling of being Rolls-Royce-ish also in the Skoda. And when you press it one more time, it closes, so that's a practical feature. There we go. Yeah, just putting it into this one again. This can... That's, usually Leah does it for me. Yeah, this can take time. And you can actually choose, you can have this, yeah, I know the comments are incoming now. I know which comments are incoming now, thank you for that. You can have this umbrella, but you can also, for example, put a snow brush in there. That's also possible. Back to the trunk, back to the future. Here, you can also fold this and this, then you can load things through. But here I want to show you how much luggage we actually have in there, and even that one, the luggage looks lost because it is so large. And to me this is cool because you have a Combi or an Estate flexibility at the same time. Here, look at that, you can load through, and you have the beautiful exterior. This is here a meter or 40 inches in width, and the length here is about 120 in meters or 47 inches, so that's very impressive. This is here a net, you can also deinstall that easily like this, and underneath there's more space, for example, also here for this replacement tire. And here, by the way, hidden is another trunk splitter, so more space in there. And then this one, especially when the net is not there, you just put it somewhere and then glues to the ground, and then you can use it as a splitter that, you know, for example, a suitcase doesn't fly all the way across the trunk. By the way, a good test is also when it's really all full of rain and you open the trunk, does the rain fall into the trunk when we open it? Just slightly, but here, yeah, it falls down here, and then actually not too bad. I mean, everything stayed relatively clean and dry. Have you seen, by the way, this tinting of the front window? This is the heated windscreen and it works without any wires. It's a special foil. I love that solution because a heated front screen is great in wintertime when you don't have any possibility to park the car inside. Yet at the same time, me personally, for example, when I see these heating wires from the classic solution, I get mad when I look against a bright sky and so on. So this is a cool solution. Then about the engines. So you have a wide variety of choices. This is here the typical 2-liter TDI, 150 horsepower, just over 9 seconds in the acceleration figure. The hatch, limousine, fastback, liftback and so on, you get it. This form here is 0.1 seconds quicker each in the acceleration than the Combi, than the Estate. So it's more aerodynamic, more fuel efficient and also a little bit quicker. Yes, the driving won't matter that much, the differences, but still, it is actually the more clever form in a way, you know what I mean? Next to the 2-liter TDI, you get a 1.5 TSI. That one has mild hybrid technology, and stronger one, 2-liter TSI up to 265 horsepower, then also with all-wheel drive. Or you go for the strong diesel horsepower figure for the all-wheel drive, that would be the alternative. And big news also for the plug-in hybrid, based on the 1.5 TSI, now at 20 kilowatt hours net, the battery, so you can easily go like 80 kilometers, 50 miles, pure or electric. So the plug-in hybrid drivetrain is the one that changed most actually in this very generation. Sport mode. Plop. So that was 50 kilometers an hour to 130 kilometers an hour with the 2-liter TDI, 150 horsepower. This has been the most bought engine version in the previous generation and will also be high in sales in this very generation. That's why it's so important to know how powerful it is. Just over 9 seconds is the acceleration figure. Here in the sedan, as I said earlier, 0.1 second quicker each in the acceleration figures than the Estate and the Combi version. That's also very interesting. And the sedan is also better in the aerodynamics, so should also be a little bit better in the final consumption. We'll also give you an update, of course, of that later on. Here at about 120, 130 kilometers an hour, 70, 80 miles an hour, we already feel that there's one of the big differences to the Octavia. Here in the Superb, it's way more silent. Because yes, the Octavia in its new generation, or this new facelifted one, has become like a small Superb, yes, but here there's still a difference. So the Superb is definitely better in the noise insulation. So it is the most silent Skoda on the road, and it is also their Autobahn, their motorway vehicle. Here today on the Czech motorway, but 130 kilometers an hour, of course, is already a substantial speed. And I think the noise insulation here is already good, and as I said, the best of all the Skoda models. DCC is also doing a good job here in the sport mode. This new DCC Plus is a little bit stiffer than in the normal mode. At the same time, it always rules in a certain spectrum. So we always have comfort and sport in here at the same time. Let's just try it. So this is the sport mode, but we can also go back, for example, to the comfort mode. And I can easily switch that here in the lower part. That's to me like an advantage in comparison to the Passat. The Passat and the Superb are being built in the same plant. They overall feel kind of similar, definitely, but here user interface wise, a little bit better with the Skoda because you can still have this manual dial. Also, when you quickly want to adjust the temperature or something like that, also do it with a separate dial. In the lower part, you also see as like a confirmation gauge in the infotainment up there. Yes, the Passat has the bigger screen, so maybe that one you can also better see while driving. That's maybe a little bit pro and con. That's the thing that they kept for the Passat. Yeah, but as I said, in driving they come very close, and I like the 2-valve technology here for the DCC Plus for the adaptive suspension, because here I'm in the comfort mode, it's very comfortable, but at the same time it can also be sporty, and the same in the sport mode, you just switch a little bit like where exactly it's ruling. Here the individual mode I have at the moment, yeah, while driving it's not ideal, because there you can rule from very comfortable to sporty here with the DCC, so you can individually set that, and I always like a comfortable setting of the suspension, whereas the steering I set to sport to have a little bit more feedback from the steering here. Let's test the lane change. It's really nice, doesn't shake up too much, and also very good control from the steering, so I'm really happy with the steering overall. So here in the sport mode I just have a little bit more resistance, I need to steer a little bit more, and to me that's a better feeling than when it's here, for example, in the normal or comfort mode, where it's a little bit softer. Just matter of preference. But overall, very good to control, and also a true motorway vehicle, very comfortable. Then of course assistance systems play a role. There's a separate column here in the lower part, where then, for example, set the speed, you can resume or cancel it, and then you can set individual 1 kilometer steps with small step, or you can push it up a little bit further, and then you do 10 kilometer steps up and down. So that's also an easy solution. Assistance systems here also with the blind spot monitor. You might have seen it flashing. So maybe these motorcyclists, no, they're not driving too fast. So otherwise I can show you again. So they are also very good here, the blind spot monitors. There's one assistance system pack you get the most basic features with, and then there's the more extensive pack available, with also like automatic parking in and out, which is not that necessary, but I would go maybe for the smaller assistance systems pack, save some money, but then you have like the blind spot monitor and also the travel assist included. And the travel assist not only controls how much distance you have to the car in front of you, but it can also rule that you keep in the lane, and this can also be adjusted. So for example here, one thumb press here on the right, I can activate or deactivate the lane assist if you don't like that at some point. Maybe you want to drive a little bit sport and say like, hey, I don't feel like I want to use the lane assist anymore. So that's also a good solution, that you can easily deactivate these assistance systems. Speed warning can also be easily deactivated, like with 2 clicks. So that's also cool. And I can select the travel assist. I can just select the ACC, the adaptive cruise control, or a speed limiter. And when I'm here with the travel assist, see here, also the car is being kept inside the lane, and also in a very smooth way, so there's no hectic steering movement and so on. It's also one of the things that has been majorly upgraded here with the new generation, that the assistance system, there we go. Here, by the way, when I set the turning indicator, then also here the blind spot monitor is flashing. Yeah, so very flawless motorway vehicle, definitely. Here, by the way, difference when I'm in sport mode, do a lane change, a little bit more feedback from its suspension. But as I said, all the driving modes work very well, so I can also just understand if you leave it maybe in the normal mode or in the personal mode, and just don't change anything with it overall. Passenger verdict, Leah? You relaxed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Overall, a good comfort experience, also good from the ergonomics. We've just had the Passat. Actually, we're driving it at home at the moment, and the big question then is Passat or Superb. Driving-wise, they're really equal. I would rather say it's about the user interface and the screen size. So the Passat has the bigger screen, then it doesn't have the interface in the lower part. This one has the interface in the lower part, and the screen is a little bit smaller. Then the question is, if you order the bigger screen anyway, or if you even are happy with a little bit smaller screen, I would say it's more like the dealer offering. You get this concise offer, maybe like that. Yeah, and the Superb, I mean, I did configure one, and my configuration of Superb is definitely a little bit cheaper than with the Passat, so that might also be a factor to consider, for example. But yeah, it handles very well, especially here on the motorway, where we also put the focus on it, because this vehicle will be a lot of the time on the motorway. Yeah, and when you do some slower and city driving, and also here in the corners, does it feel too bulky in the city? No, actually not. It's very easy to maneuver around, very easy to steer. And I really like the steering setup, especially in the sport mode. You also have a little bit more engine brake, for example, in the sport mode, because the RPMs are turned up higher. This can also help, for example. And you see here, when you turn in the corners, the steering wheel really follows the corner very nicely. It's actually also fun to drive. So it's not only a good motorway cruiser, it is fun to drive. Does it feel then too large at some point? Yeah, as I said, here not. Just when you are in like a narrow parking garage or something, then at some point you might feel like, okay, it has been getting longer and longer from generation to generation. Then you need to steer back and forth a little bit, not to damage the wheels and so on. But in normal city driving, and as long as you know your parking spots, is actually no problem. Here also really nice in these corners. Yeah, actually also fun to drive. Oh, whoa, that was 0 to 90 kilometers an hour with the 2-liter TSI, 265 horsepower, 5.6 seconds in the acceleration figure to 100, contrast to 5.8 with the Combi. So here the difference is 0.2 seconds. Very impressive. And yeah, I mean, even though the road is wet, it was perfect acceleration, very good grip, very good traction, and also the steering wheel, wasn't moving. So I had very good control over the vehicle. This is, of course, where the all-wheel drive system really plays a good role when you accelerate it out. And even though when you have conditions like these, or maybe like snow or something in winter and so on, and yeah, the acceleration difference is very notable, considering it's like over 9 seconds with the 2-liter TDI in the 150 horsepower trim we had earlier. So yeah, more than 3 seconds or 3.5 seconds is the difference. And of course, this you do feel very noticeably. There's just more happening, definitely. Also here uphill, nice sporty style also in the sport mode. The steering once again reacts better. Road is slightly wet now, so the all-wheel drive system gives me better traction. It is still a front-wheel driven platform, so it's front plus rear on demand. But of course, as soon as a slip is detected in the front, it's also more power sent to the rear wheels. And that's of course pretty helpful when you have very slippery roads, for example, also in wintertime. Other than that, in most situations, the front-wheel drive, of course, will be just fine. The engine itself is just more lively, especially, when you are in tight turns and want to accelerate out. You don't have to wait so long for the turbo to set in. It comes more spontaneous how the power sets in. That's the main difference. Consumption here with the 2-liter TSI, 7 liters on 1 kilometers, 34 mpg US, 41 mpg UK, so 2 liters more on 100 kilometers in comparison to the 2-liter TDI with 150 horsepower. Of course, that's like, more of a slower engine versus the top engine spec. But 2 liters still, it's not too much of a difference. The difference is of course higher when you go really high speed on the motorway. There, of course, the 2-liter TDI is just more efficient. Consumption 5 liters on 1 kilometers, 47 mpg US, 56 mpg UK, 42-liter TDI in the front-wheel drive 150 horsepower trim. You can hardly beat that. When you sit down in the vehicle, you have a full fuel tank and you can drive 1,000 kilometers or 600 miles without refueling. That's very impressive. So indeed, this aerodynamic form, together with some engine tweaks for this generation, works very well. A very efficient vehicle indeed. And this was, more constant speed, but we've been driving a long period of time, 130 kilometers an hour, like 80 miles an hour on the motorway. And this consumption for that speed is very impressive indeed. Yeah, and then pricing is also pretty interesting. Recently we had the Skoda Octavia, which now is way more expensive than the pre-facelift. So pricing-wise, they went closer together now. And you said, can you tell us more about the differences, Octavia, Superb? To me, the biggest difference is this one is more silent, also at higher motorway speeds. To me, the biggest difference, next to, of course, even more space. And pricing here starts about 38,500 euros. In Germany, it's a reference price. And when it stands here as it is spec'd here, maybe like a mid-trim spec with some important extras, you can reach some 55,000 euros. And then you have a very, very well spec'd vehicle. It can be more expensive with the top engines and so on, and with all extras in like 60,000 euros. Is not cheap at all. But considering of how much car you get for that, how much space, how much refinement on the interior, this is indeed very impressive, and a premium competitor in an equal segment like a Mercedes E-Class, a BMW 5 Series, size-wise, is at least double the price. And that's the most impressive thing here about the Skoda Superb. Yeah, especially here, I really love the hatch or the limousine form. Do you? Also tune in to the estate review or to the Volkswagen Passat, the internal sibling.